Good afternoon, everyone. Again, it is Tuesday. It is time for That's Our Two Satoshis Live with Arca, where we talk about the digital asset markets. For those who don't know, we have been writing and talking about the crypto markets for 6 years now. And we write a blog every week. You can get it on our website, ar.ca, called That's Our Two Satoshis. We break down what's going on, and then we bring a guest on to talk about what's going on. And this week, I am thrilled to have joining me Omar Etam, who I've known for about a decade and a half now, former hedge fund macro trader and PM, and now the head of international business development at Arca. Omar, thanks for joining.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Yeah, so before we get started, as always, I'm Jeff Dorman, CIO and co-founder of Arca, a digital asset management firm focused only and exclusively on crypto. As always, everything we talk about here is not investment advice. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. You know what's going on. So, Omar, last week was interesting in the digital asset market. Kind of a sloppy week, not the best week for crypto. A little bit of pockets of strength here and there. But most importantly, the thing that was most interesting was crypto basically entered the political sphere. And specifically, what I mean by that was started to feel like we're going to have a little bit of a bipartisan rhetoric here ahead of the election here. We had Trump basically coming out saying that a vote for crypto is a vote for Trump. You had Mark Cuban coming out on Twitter basically saying that the Democratic Party is completely unfriendly to crypto and they're going to lose the election as a result of it, basically understating how important crypto is potentially as a single policy for some voters. I know the election's a little bit of ways away. I know you have a lot of experience here. What do you think about this? And will it really be kind of a bigger hot button as we approach the November election, or is this sort of a flash in the pan, a couple of comments, and we'll move on from there?
No, I think, from an international perspective, I can tell you. So, over the last 30 days or so, I have been to Hong Kong, Singapore, spoke with family offices and pension funds in the Middle East and countries that include Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, the Kingdom of Jordan, and as far as places like Australia. I can tell you that everybody is taking a look at and watching the elections very, very carefully. There is a growing belief, I think, in international circles that there is a strong likelihood that Biden loses next election as a result of some of the things that we're seeing on college campuses and the demographics that helped him win the election in the last cycle. There is a sentiment that in the event that Trump wins, it would be very, very positive for digital assets and the crypto sector, broadly speaking, in no small part due to the fact that Gary Gensler, under the Biden administration, has been one of the most unpopular figures for the space.
Yeah, so let's dive into that because I think most of the viewers here have seen me largely talk about the US, both because of its financial importance as well as because of my international ignorance. But we tend to focus there, certainly on the US regulatory environment over other regulatory environments. Um, because you've spent so much time abroad, because you've spent, basically the last 3 months traveling and talking to these investors and other fund managers. One of the things I really enjoyed about what you wrote, and for those who also have read the blog, Omar actually guest wrote this week, and it was terrific. Basically talking about what he learned and the developments outside of North America, and put basically probably 20 or so bullet points together. We've already cut a few of them because it was so much information we couldn't fit it all, but a lot of really good information about what you're seeing from a capital formation standpoint, investor bases, kind of the shift across the globe. Why don't you dive into some of those that you think are most important with regard to what is going to drive not only investment returns, but really just the shape of this industry going forward?
Yeah, I'll start by commenting on one of the points that you made earlier on the regulatory environment. What I can tell you is it feels like the United States is falling behind a lot of other countries in the world. I can tell you, we've all heard about the United Arab Emirates. We've all heard about how Dubai has become one of the crypto capitals in the world. Regulators have been extremely forward thinking. They've been aggressive about putting together a framework that we can all understand and operate, within. Something that really kind of surprised me was how aggressive other regulators are moving on this front. Hong Kong comes to mind. I met with one of the largest asset management firms in our space in Asia And one of the things that they told me was when they had filed for, they've been lobbying the regulators to approve, spot ETFs for Bitcoin and Ethereum for quite some time. This was, I'd say, they started about a year ago, maybe less than that. And it seems like the regulators approved those ETFs at a far quicker pace than that asset manager had anticipated. And that just kind of tells you how aggressive people are moving. Now, each regulator, each country is doing things for different reasons. One of the reasons that the Hong Kong regulators are moving as aggressively as they are is because after the pandemic, after COVID, you saw a lot of capital leave Hong Kong for Singapore. And the government in Hong Kong, the regulators in Hong Kong believe that crypto is going to be one of the ways through which they can bring all of that capital back to Hong Kong.
Now let me cut in here again. Maybe a little bit too U.S. centric, but for 25 years, I've been in and around the debt and equity markets. Everything is driven out of New York and to some extent London. Over time, that has shifted a little bit towards Asia. How important is this in terms of shaping ultimately what happens across digital assets, or are we just going to basically see this sort of pocket of the world that cares a lot more about this, but it never really takes off in the U.S. and Europe?
No, I look, a lot hinges on the next election, as we said earlier. Let's see what happens there. I think the United States will wake up to this asset class. I think we're already beginning to see. I've spent a good deal of time with congressional staffers here in Washington, D.C., and I can tell you that the conversation is picking up. So I do think the U.S. will get its act together, and I think we will follow suit in the footsteps of a lot of these other countries in the world.
Yeah, and one of the bigger risks there too. I mean, shout out to Electric Capital, who every year put together their annual developer report. But I mean, you're just seeing an exodus of developer talent and entrepreneurial talent move out of the United States and into more crypto-friendly jurisdictions. You're also seeing a lot of, as a result, investment dollars moving that way as well. One of the things I thought was interesting what you wrote about is you kind of broke down by region. Things you're seeing, like specific things that you're seeing in Bahrain, as well as what you're seeing across, Australia and throughout Saudi Arabia. Are there specific parts of the world where you're seeing, maybe more of a focus on RWA and tokenization, or more of a focus on just, leveraging blockchain for certain use cases, or really just focusing on the investment and speculation aspect?
Yeah, it's a good question. It seems like every part of the world is thinking about blockchain through a different lens. I can tell you that Asia continues to be a leader in the gaming space. I can tell you that the Middle East is looking at blockchain largely from a bank settlement perspective, looking to solve and enhance, settlement related issues. It seems like each part of the world has a different use case for blockchain. I think something that you mentioned in terms of developers moving overseas, I think part of the reason that's happening is because of the aggressive policies that some of these governments are taking. I can tell you that Bahrain, as an example, was absolutely astounding. I was very, very shocked to see how forward-thinking different entities in Bahrain were. We've all heard about ADGM in Abu Dhabi. That's Abu Dhabi Global Markets Free Zone. They've obviously been offering companies and fund managers a great deal of subsidies and other sorts of incentives to move their operations over there. Bahrain is doing very much the same thing right now. There are other places in Asia that are also thinking about implementing policies so they can attract, fund managers like ourselves, but also portfolio companies, developers, and talent to their shores.
Yeah, and I think one of the quotes that you had in the write-up, which I thought were great, was you basically said, to sum it up, the United States of America, France, Britain, and Germany are yesterday. Asia is today. The Arab Middle East and Latin America are tomorrow. Africa is the day after tomorrow. And you basically said the West has to wake up, right? This technology, the adoption, and digital assets are going to enhance democracy, revolutionize social mobility, create economies more powerful and inclusive than anything we've experienced since the dawn of fiat currency and the advent of democracy itself. And a little frustration in your voice when you said the U.S. has always been the source of entrepreneurial hope and constitutes the greatest portion of global GDP, and is defined, the U.S. is defined by upward social mobility when few other countries anywhere can claim the same. But if the U.S. doesn't completely embrace blockchain and digital assets immediately, broadly speaking, it will fall even further behind and it'll be tough to catch up. I mean, that's a powerful statement. Did you feel that way before the last 3 months, or did your travels the last 3 months really enhance that thinking?
I think the traveling over the last 3 months certainly pushed me in that direction. And as an American, it doesn't feel very good to think about things like that. You always wanted the United States to be at the forefront, but we've had a regulator here in the U.S. that has been antagonistic at best against our space, and other folks in the world have picked up on that. Saw an opportunity, started deploying billions and billions of dollars into that space, making investments in all sorts of companies and with fund managers, so that those fund managers and those companies could actually move overseas, take their talent to places like Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, Manama, Hong Kong, Singapore, etc. So I think the United States has to wake up, and we still have a chance to do so. I'm hoping it happens sooner than later, but I can tell you that it's going to be an uphill battle based on what I saw over the last 3 months.
Yeah, and look, the flows back that up. 2020, 2021, obviously an incredibly good fundraising environment for crypto funds, but especially in the United States. I mean, the back half of 2020, the first half of 2021, a lot of money coming in across U.S. family offices, even at U.S. pensions and endowments, getting a lot closer. Some of them even allocating a lot of them in the eighth, ninth inning. That's gone pretty cold in the last couple of years, but the international fundraising hasn't changed at all. And in fact, it's increased given the interest in this space. And quite frankly, the lack of places to put that money outside of the Bitcoin ETF and a couple of private funds here and there. I'm going to ask you a question here, and be careful how you answer from a compliance standpoint. Obviously, you got to be careful, given that most of ARCA's funds and most funds across the space are for accredited investors and qualified institutional buyers only. So be generic in your answer here. But if anybody outside the United States who typically invests in early stage technologies or liquid funds or crypto in general, what would be a message that you would send to them right now about what their peers are doing and what it looks like to be successful investing in this space?
Yeah, honestly, I would think about some of the companies that they've already invested in. I'm talking about traditional businesses in the agriculture sector, in the airline sector, in the financial services sector, whatever it might be. And just think about how investing in our asset class could actually improve, and enhance operational efficiencies in those, traditional businesses. We have a great deal of portfolio companies. I can tell you that certain pension funds globally are looking to make investments in venture because they believe that the companies that they're investing in could somehow be leveraged for other purposes. So not only are they going to be getting an ROI on that investment, or hopefully they'll be getting an ROI on that investment when they're making early stage, pre-seed, seed stage investments, but they're also going to be able to leverage the talent at those portfolio companies for whatever purposes they deem necessary. And
Yeah,
I'd encourage U.S.-based investors to think through that lens as well.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that over the years, right? Exactly. Big investors who, especially even in the private equity space, who own other businesses, want to invest in the technology, learn about it, and figure out how to apply it to other businesses that are not currently involved in digital assets or blockchain. So Omar, this is great. I think, and again, I encourage everybody to go to the blog itself and read in more detail some of Omar's thoughts from his traveling. Again, you can find that at ar.ca/blog. Omar, what's the best way for people to reach you if they want to learn more about international fundraising or they want to talk to you specifically?
They can reach me by email, omar@ar.ca. I think that's the best way.
Great. And everyone else, obviously, you can reach out on our website. You can find us on Twitter or X at ARCA. You can find me at jdorman81. And come back again next week. As always, we'll be talking about the digital asset markets, both in terms of what's happening currently with price and catalysts, as well as some of the bigger picture developments like we did today. So Omar, thanks again. Thanks everybody. And we'll be back again next week.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. See you later.